This is Say It As It Is. Theo de Jager, you are the president of the South African Agri Initiative. And you are many things. You are perhaps the most knowledgeable person in agriculture in South Africa. When I say that, you might feel embarrassed. But I haven't met a person with a broader knowledge of agriculture here and globally than what is the case with you. So I'm just saying it to boost you a little bit before we start talking. The rest will come out as we're talking. I want to focus today on the issue of black economic empowerment and the impact on agriculture. It is the impact of black economic empowerment is felt in all industries, and it is most probably the cause of the ground reason for South Africa's steep decline in all respects. But I want to talk to you this morning how it affects agriculture, the farmers, and what is happening currently. And I want you to open your heart and say it as it is.
Thank you. Thank you for having invited me here again. And you are wrong. I'm not the most knowledgeable in agriculture. It's only that I know all the knowledgeable people in agriculture.
At least you know what they know.
A group of researchers from the University of Harvard has spent the last 2 years researching the economic decline in South Africa, and they've just published their results, and they blame it squarely on the way black economic empowerment is being implemented. And they cut no corners about it. So, yes, over the last week, the last 8-9 days, we've really seen a lot of turmoil in our industry on this topic, because last Sunday, one of the biggest Afrikaans newspapers published on its front page the government gazettes, which were published on black economic empowerment criteria for the granting of certain benefits on quotas for tariffs of a short list of agricultural products, mostly first stage processed products such as juice, jam, canned fruit, sugared strawberries, wine, saying if you want to apply to benefit from these special tariffs in the EU and the UK, then you also need to hand in your black economic empowerment certificates. They want to see how you've performed on that. And the newspaper made the mistake to say this is new requirements. It was not new. Similar gazettes have already been published twice before. Last year, we also had legal action taken by SAAI against the PPECB, one of the agencies of government, who asked farmers to submit their BEE certificates along with their applications for export licenses. Now, we have fundamental problems about it, but we also have practical problems with it. On a fundamental basis, on a principled basis, we still want to know, how do you BEE a family farm?
And 90% of South African farming operations are family farms.
More than 90% of our production output on farms is still family farmer based.
That's how it starts. It's a farmer, farming on his farm.
And you know, those farms run in families, and there is a succession planning for it. And you would know from your own background, it is hard enough for a father to farm with his sons, or for brothers to farm together. What to say for cousins to farm together? How do you farm with a partner which you did not really want there? So we took on this battle. I served on the Agri BEE Charter Committee for 8 years, since its inception. And I never signed off. There were two main obstacles between us signing off. I was then a representative of Agri SA on that committee. And the first was land claims on a farm. You know, how do you recruit an investor to your farm if there's a land claim on the farm? Please put money into this farm, but we're not sure that we will still have this farm in 2 years from now. It's absurd. Some farmers, in desperation, involved land claimants, saying, you be my partner until this land claim has been settled. And then the claimants said, who gave the farmer the authority to choose which of the claims on his farm is the valid one, because we've also filed a claim on that farm. And it becomes a mess. So we demanded that farms with land claims on it should be exempted from the BEE Charter. But then a previous Premier of Limpopo, Selo Molotu, said, there are 88% of all the farms in my province which have land claims on it.
From more than one source?
No, with land claims. 88% of all the farms have a land claim on them.
Yeah.
So
and the land claims sometimes come from more than one group.
Yes,
there are more than one claim on one farm.
On my farm there are 42 claimants. But 42 is better than one, you know. They will not sort out which one is the valid claimant in my lifetime.
41 claimants say, I'm entitled to that farm.
Yeah.
41.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes it perhaps easier or more difficult. I don't know. What do you say?
Easier.
Okay. It creates a lot of confusion.
They will fight each other for the next few generations, because if one of those claims are valid, all of them are valid.
Yeah.
You see, it comes from a tribal chief who had 6 sons, and they had wars on each other. Today, their grandchildren and their grandchildren are tribal entities in their own right. And they never liked each other. So all 6 of those brothers now have a land claim on my farm. They are not the problem. They had 14 sisters. And each of them married into different tribal entities. And their daughters married into different tribal entities, and their daughters.
And you can lodge a land claim on the basis of hearsay.
Yeah,
that's cheap.
Can.
That's just filling in a form. Yes. The farmer must defend these claims
and prove that it's not valid.
And in your case, 42 claimants, and he has to protect himself against them, and he dishes out the money for that purpose.
Yeah, it cost me as a farmer a lot of money to challenge this in court. Whilst government pays for the claimants.
Yeah.
Which also comes from my tax.
Continue, please. Yeah.
So when this...
you pay for the guy that fights you. Yeah. You pay tax, and they give your tax money to him to fight you, to the 42 claimants. Yeah.
So when these BE requirements were published, it has really split organized agriculture. A large number of commodity organizations, business organizations in agriculture, and agricultural unions actually took sides with the minister, saying, this is not real trouble. It's only a small list of products which are affected. And it's only 2 countries, the UK and the EU. It's not really bothering us that much. Whilst the rest of us are questioning the principle.
The EU is not a country, it's a block of countries.
Yeah.
It's huge, actually.
It is. It's a massive market.
Yeah, massive market.
We said, if you can allow this short list, what would stop her next year to triple that list, to expand that list tenfold or 100-fold? What would stop her to expand it to other countries too? We should wring the neck of this principle right at the beginning, in step 1 of it. And sure, a few days later, SAAI revealed a classified document which they obtained through a PIA application, in which the department explains its strategy to force farmers to comply to the BEE Charter by withholding licenses and permits, for example, a permit to export. So they all the time had the plan to put on the pressure of farmers, and then we challenged those organizations too in the last 2 days to explain to the broader public and to the world their moral grounds for supporting the implementation of Black economic empowerment principles on a family farm. And we came up with this imaginary scenario of having 2 friends, young people, young farmers, way too young to have been complicit in apartheid or to have benefited or be disadvantaged by it. Both who had the same qualification. They were school friends and they studied together. But the one guy still has a lot of debt on his farm and on his implements and on his production loans because he's white. And the other one got it from government. He's a beneficiary of land reform because he's not white. The white guy must bring in a black partner. The one who's not white, he can simply focus on expanding his business and his competitiveness. The white guy cannot appoint the best possible managers. On every level of his farm, they will judge him on the color of the skin of his managers and the management control they exercise. Not only color of skin, some of them must also be women, in whichever definition of women you want to use today. The other one, he can simply appoint the best ones, who also best fit into the ethos of his business. The white young farmer cannot buy the best quality or the cheapest or the closest inputs, fertilizer, diesel, seeds, mechanization. He is judged by the color of the skin of his suppliers. He is subjected to preferential procurement criteria, and also a certain portion of his profits must be invested in the communities around him. And it's not as if there is a sunset clause. The white guy cannot say, I'm working towards a day 10 years from now or 5 years from now or 20 years from now, when the playing field will be leveled. As it is written now, it's forever. We want to know, how do you morally justify that? So, when I visited Uganda last week, this came up as a point of discussion between a few policymakers and influential business people.
Just for somebody in the United States listening to this, Uganda is a country governed by blacks. 99% of the population in Uganda is black. 99.9%. And just for somebody sitting somewhere and say, where's Uganda? In Middle Africa, yeah.
Yeah, in Central Africa. And it's a country who's very serious about escalating the competitiveness of its agricultural sector. And they say, but this, for us, this sounds like the old-fashioned apartheid just the poles have been switched. Can't you, South African, just liberate yourselves from...
Get over it now.
Yeah, get over it now. Yeah, I'm afraid that to the mind and to the likes of a majority of farmers in South Africa, there are way too many business people, those who we rely on, business leaders in South Africa, who actually support this system. And it is harder to push back against them than it is to push back against the policymakers.
Well, I think there are white business people in huge companies, globalist companies, monopolies, who's very much involved in the scheme. And they are the most dangerous part of this whole scheme. They are, because they make money out of this thing. There's huge money to be make. And in the case of agriculture, the family farmer is pushed out of the scenario. If they can get it right, if their wish comes true, then they will be pushing all family farmers out of the market and run the show. This is monopolistic behavior, and there is no moral basis for this.
Which is why we are so vigorously challenging it, saying we will scrum back against it, even if it's the last thing we do. What now? I mean, we're in the same. While you were talking about buying from a particular supplier. This is a bottle of water. If you drink, and I'm just using, I don't have the figures now, but if you sit in SAAI and you drink this bottle of water on the aeroplane, the amounts, the figures I'm using is not verified. I'm just using it. You can perhaps buy this thing because they buy it in their millions for R1 or R2 or R3. But that's not what SAAI is paying. They're paying much, much more because there's a lot of guys in the value chain that benefits through this bottle of water. So they might pay R15 for a bottle of water. I want to emphasize, this is not the right figure. But they benefit because in the value chain between R3 and R15, there's a few mouths that need to be fed. That's why SAAI cannot operate at a profit. That's why they're closing. Because that's not only happening with water, it's happening with each and every thing. There was a person that sat in my office, and he says his business is involved in the maintenance and repair of a certain item. And he delivers that item, to the person that places the order. This is a white company, and we say it as it is here, for 25,000 Rand. And he said to me, I make money out of this. But when this item reached the final destination, the client pays 200,000 Rand for it. Now, between 25 and 200,000, there's no value added whatsoever. Nothing. No value added. Here's why we can't make it. Yeah. So there's a lot of mouths at this trough who eats, and everyone swans off and everyone gets something out of this thing. We cannot make it if we continue with this. So what do? You might remember that a little more than a year ago, we had these big issues at our ports, and farmers who complained that their fruit went rotten on the ports because it could not be shipped out. And load shedding was blamed for a part of it, and the infrastructure on the ports and the systems on the ports were blamed for it partially. But then one of the farmers told me this story. He said, one of the windows of these big cranes loading the containers onto the ship broke. And with industrial safety regulations, they were not allowed to continue operating this crane until a new window had been put in. And in the whole of South Africa, there were only 2 of these windows available. But unfortunately, the business which held them in storage was white-owned. So they made him an offer. And he said, the Harbour Authority can buy it from me. I'm a one-man business. Buy it from me. But they would not. They would rather wait for a month to import it from Europe so that it could be bought from a black person. And in the meantime, the crane was not operational. It becomes absurd. This is exactly the reason why in civil society, the Solidarity Group could build a university in 1 year in a much shorter time than what they planned, lower than budget.
No, not shorter time. Much shorter time.
Yes.
Much cheaper.
Much cheaper than what they budgeted, yes. In this, for under the value which the Provincial Department of Education sanitized primary schools. Because they don't need
sanitized the primary schools.
During COVID, when there was no children in any way.
Yeah.
So, this is why we have lost our competitiveness, and shortly after that, we saw the implosion of certain functions.
There's our police stations, and we'll come back to agriculture. Our police stations, when they need the police needs, when they need to go out to the crime scene, they have got no vehicles. That's the story. Many of these vehicles stand at a garage, at a repair shop, because the battery is flat. Now, in the private sector, if your battery is flat, you go to a place, you pay 1,000 rand, more or less, or whatever the case may be, and you get your battery fixed in minutes. In that case, these vehicles stand for years sometimes, not fixed, because there's underhanded dealings involved in each and every item that is produced. This is destroying our society.
Now, the bottom line, Gerhard, is, as farmers, we say we don't want that in agriculture.
Well, more that you will not allow
We
that.
will not tolerate it. We are going to push back against it.
And we say to the farmer that don't do anything that doesn't comply with the principle of merit. Never do that. And never comply with anything that is foreign to free market principles. Free market principles always look at the best price for the best product. And that applies to equipment and persons with who you deal with and partnerships. Because you might lose now, but the person that do that for the sake of short-term gain will be out of business before you, because it cannot function. In business, the morale of a business is so important. No entrepreneur can function and prosper if his mindset is not good. You cannot be in a negative mindset and be productive and innovative. A person that is in a negative mindset cannot be innovative. It works against each other. So you cannot bring in a person or a partner which frustrates you. You cannot do that. Or without any doubt, it will destroy your business. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
So the answer is, we don't do it. We will not do it. We can be upfront with government and say, we won't do it. We will not comply.
But now you have farmers calling every day and say, the fruit is ripe. I need to pick it in the next few days. Then it must be exported. And I don't get my permit.
Well, that's massive to you. That's massive. And I mean, there's no immediate answer to that. But even if that farmer says, I will do what government, he cannot do it within days. So there needs to be planned. There needs to be planned for this. And but giving in to this will, in the long run, destroy your operation. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, for such a small country, such a small group of farmers, about 32,000 of us, to maintain our competitiveness on the shelves of shops in Europe and the USA and China, Russia, and to be able to put the preferred product on that shelf. When it comes to quality, price, reliability without the assistance of government it is not a given. It takes a lot of hard work and smart investment to maintain it. And it does not take much to disrupt that capacity. So one of our biggest fears is that we might not outlive these harmful policies.
I'm going to end this year. I just want to thank you for your huge contribution in pushing back. In South Africa, part of doing business is pushing back. This is not a normal business environment. This is, in fact, a totally abnormal business environment. Secondly, the people that makes these rules, I would say that 99% of them have never earned a cent through hard work. They haven't generated a cent. They live from our tax monies. And I want somebody in their ranks to come to us and say, Gerhard, that's not true. I've made my money through hard work. I said, maybe you've done some work, but you haven't generated money. And enforcing tax on people is not generating money. And they make the rules. They do this because they've got no clue how the market functions. Theo, thank you for what you do, and thank you for your friendship.
My privilege.
Thank you, Theo.